欢迎收听杂物间，
You are listening to The Storage Room,
你最好的口袋朋友。
your best pocket friend.
So we have talked about the fairy tale topic, and Danni sounds like a very successful teacher, and she knows how to be an educator, and she could simply enjoy the fun in life, and seems like she's living a very happy life here. So Danni, I want to ask you one question. As an American, I guess you've been in China for 16 years, right?
Yeah,
16
approximately
years.
16 years. I came into China January 18th of 2008.
Yeah. So Danni, before you came to China, like what made you to make the decision to come China, and did you come to China alone?
Oh, wow. That's a crazy little story. Well, it depends on how far back I want to start in the story.
Mm.
After being in the US military for many years, like 8 years, when I got out and I got home and I got, physically healthy again, going back to school, and I ended up being a teacher at something called a literacy council. And what literacy council is it's basically like it gives a second chance to people who kind of messed up a little bit in their lives early on, or didn't have a chance or an opportunity for certain things. For example, maybe there was somebody who didn't learn to read very well, and now here they are 25 years old and they can't read very well, and it's very difficult to fill out job applications or read things for work. So they help them read, or possibly get their high school equivalency and get into some community college. They do a lot with people coming from other countries, for English classes and citizenship and all sorts of stuff. So I got involved with them, partly because to become a teacher in the US, you do need some hours actually in a classroom, doing some teaching and assistant stuff. So in the very beginning, I started as a volunteer, but then I quickly ended up with my own classes. And part of that idea was giving back, because my experience, for some years felt like I was just taking from other humans. So it started because my friend was the person who was the boss at this literacy council in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he knew that I had some experience in some other countries, and he knew that I was going to be a teacher. And they had a family from Iraq who wanted a teacher. And it was very important for the mother that the girls all had a female teacher for their English. So he asked me if I would come volunteer and help teach this family. And I ended up with a class, and I ended up with some students, Mr. and Mrs. Liu, who were from China. And they were in their 70s easily. They had moved to China, to America from China, because their son had lived there for many years. And Mrs. Liu wanted to learn to speak English better because her grandkids didn't really speak Chinese well, and she didn't really speak English well, and she wanted to communicate better with her grandkids. And Mr. Liu was dead set on becoming an American citizen. So it was just something he wanted to do in his lifetime. So I helped him with a citizenship test. And I had been to quite a few countries in my time, but I had never been to China. And I was always asking Mr. Liu questions about China. And one day he just said to me, he's like, why don't you go there? And I'm just like, Mr. Liu, are you crazy? I don't have money to go to China. I'm working here getting paid for a few classes every week at the Literacy Council, going to school, and I'm also working at a bar at night so that I can pay my bills and everything is okay. I do have a certain amount of money from, some GI Bill stuff and everything else, but that's all for school. So I'm not going to have, student loans. And he said, no. You not to go visit China, but why don't you go teach English there? And I'm like, what? That's a thing? I can do that? And he explained to me, he's like, yeah, there's tons of schools all over China. Kids start learning English at a very young age. And there's, English, there's international schools, there's training centers, there's all sorts of job opportunities. There are companies who wish for their employees to be able to be better at English, and companies specifically hire English teachers to come teach their employees. So I was like, wow. And I went home and looked at it on the internet. And I didn't give much more thought to it at that time. But for my 30th birthday, my best friend Jeff and I went to Vietnam for a month. And during my time in Vietnam, we met these two teachers in Vietnam that had been teaching English there for like 3 years. And they were telling me a little bit more about it, and what a great opportunity is. And, the idea crossed my mind about like never going back and just becoming a teacher all right now in Vietnam. And they're like, yeah, you probably can't do that. So I went back home and, found out more information about how you can do this, and, finished school and went and got a TESOL certificate doing an in-class training course, and, found a job in a company from Nanjing. And went there, got on a plane and went there for training. And my best friend Jeff actually came to China too, but he went to Shanghai, and I came to Jiangsu province. I didn't want to live in a very big city because I figured if I'm going to go to China, I want to be able to experience China. And I feel like going to a big city like Shanghai is like, I know it's in China, but it's very international. And I thought it would be way too easy for me to get just wrapped up in the foreign scene with, and just doing like foreigner stuff with other foreigners. And I wouldn't be able to get to see the earth of China, the blue collar soul of actual like the Chinese people. So I was like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. And the company in Jiangsu province, had schools that they sent youth all throughout Jiangsu province, and they wanted me to stay in Nanjing, but I decided I didn't really want to do that. So they sent me to Suzhou, and that's how I ended up here.
Wow. At the very beginning, I think you might have this idea like, I'm gonna just experience a little bit, right? But when did you make the decision like, okay, I'm gonna stay here? Like it's not only a visit. It's not only for a job.
True. Oh, utter honesty, when I got pregnant. Oh, that's a lot, right? So I hung out in China for a minute in the beginning, and I met some people, I met some friends, and one of them happened to be my neighbor. We'll call him Joe, Mr. Chow. And I spent quite a bit of time with him and his girlfriend because they could speak quite a bit of English, between the two of them. So, communication and everything was easy. And I met my now husband through them. And eventually, I was in my 30s already, and I got pregnant and wasn't sure how that was all going to work out. But, being that I was already in my early 30s, I, was deciding on keeping the child. And my husband and I had some conversation about what we were going to do, what our options were. And one of the options was we give it a try, right? And stay together. Like, there was the option of he could send me back to America and we never talk to him again. I could stay in China and so he could have contact with his child, but we don't have to stay together as a couple. Or we could give it a try. And he disappeared for like 2 days, which my brothers assured me that is nothing to worry about. It's not that he ran away. You just dropped a very big, huge bomb in his life, and he needs to think about things. And he came back and said, I'd really like to give this a try. And here we are, 15 and a half years later, and we're still trying. And it's been working so far.
And FYI, Danny's husband is Chinese.
Yeah, my husband's Chinese. So, we had a lot of discussion in the beginning about what we were going to do. And it was my husband made it very clear that he did not want to leave China. That was something that he wasn't really willing to do. And I was okay with that. I was willing to stay here, it didn't seem like it was like I didn't hate it or anything. So like, why not? Uh, so the original idea was there were some if clauses on that, where if certain things happened, we would go to America. Just because life quality for everyone involved. But staying in China was definitely the better choice for us. I mean, he has low education. He has no English really. And, I can make pretty good money as a foreign teacher here in China, working in international schools and such. So there was no reason not to stay. So yeah, I stayed, because it was the better choice for our family in the end.
And now Danny has a 14-year-old son, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My 14-year-old son who just officially became Chinese not that long ago. We got him his hukou and his shenfenzheng. So he's now officially Chinese.
And now that you're pretty far away from your original family, I don't know how many times you just, came back home to United States to take the grandson to the grandparents. So
I have never been back to the United States.
What?
No, I've never gone back to the United States. I've just lived in China for 16 years. There's never been a holiday to the US during that time.
What about your family members? Did they visit you?
No.
What's going on?
Well, I mean, my family, most of them are not very wealthy people, right? And, just the idea has crossed some of their minds, but they just never seem to be able to get around to doing it, I'm surprised my one aunt and uncle never came, but that might be because they just feel like they're too old for it now. But I still think, like, if there was anyone who was ever going to come, it would have been my Uncle Andy and Aunt Liz. I mean, they would certainly have the money to do it. They certainly have the drive to experience, life outside of the US and some culture and stuff. But I don't know. No one just. I mean, my mother is a terrible idea for my mother to come to China. That's the worst idea ever. My mom is too old and too set in her ways, and I simply would have no idea what to do with her. I mean, there's just only so much walking around some malls and some antique places that you can do. I mean, my mom's not interested in walking through some gardens, parks. Right. And food I'd worry more about food. Like, what do I feed her? Like, I would have to spend a ton of money on Taobao to just get all American stuff for her.
Exactly. You can bake, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it would just be, I mean, she would probably take over in the kitchen. I just don't have half of anything she needs.
How would you feel if your mom just visit?
I would understand the true meaning of anxiety.
That's what I was thinking, that number one, that Danny's basically feeling that it wouldn't be an experience that her mother would gain. It's not going to be a new experience, or that much of a new experience that her mother will gain. And at the same time, that it will have to, have a lot of effort from Danny's part and the family part to cater to her, to make her comfortable. Yet there's not much kind of new experience generated from that. So it's a moot point kind of for her to visit.
Yeah. Danny is being very honest. I live in a very different city from my parents, far away from my parents. Like every time when my mom wanted to visit me, I felt the anxiety that you were talking about.
I wouldn't feel it if I lived in the US. I would just be like, oh, well, my mom's coming. But like, my mom is so set in her ways. Like, she's not excited about new ideas, like, and new things, right? So I just, like, I'd have to be so careful about eating nothing spicy for her. And like, she's not somebody who likes, you go, oh, take her to McDonald's, right? Like, I would want to just keep her in Shanghai, where we have a lot of Western food options for restaurants and stuff like that. And there's more to do and more to see, because she's also not the type of person who really can sit at home and do nothing. right? But she would need a little literal babysitter. Like, okay, if my father came, he would have been able to, my father's no longer alive, by the way, but my father would have been able to just go out of the house with a piece of paper that had the address of where he needs to get back to, and he would have just went and did shit, right? He would have went and for the adventure. But my mother is not an adventurer.
Right.
And
but do you think that you would invite your father? I mean, you're going to invite both of them. Do you think that your father will ever come alone by himself to visit you?
Okay, he would have, but that's a very long story. My father and I did not talk for many years.
Oh.
Got it.
But he would have. Yes, if I ever gave him the opportunity, he would have.
Got it.
He's got an adventurer spirit. She does not.
I'm quite curious, as a female, and how young were you when you joined the military?
I was right after high school. I was 18 years old.
So what prompted you to join the military versus, like, what was the thought process then as a young girl?
What was the thought process? My father and my uncles had all been in the military.
Okay.
My one grandfather that was born in the United States had been in the military. My other grandparents were all from Eastern Europe, and they didn't have an opportunity to be in the military. But it was very much blue collar family, right? My parents have 8 children, and I was taught very young, like, that there's 2 ways that I'm going to get to university if I want to go to university. And one is that I take out student loans, and my father thinks that's a ridiculous idea because he can't possibly pay for all of his children to do all of these things.
Right.
Like, he just can't, right? And the other way was to join the military, and they pay for it. So it was very much pushed into my head by my father and my uncles. And my mom just sort of said, you have to make your own decisions when you're that age. I can't make them for you. Even though she wasn't a big fan of the idea. She's a fan of the idea of going to university, but not of the fan of her daughter joining the military. And, there were a lot of times where my uncles and my dad were not exactly, exactly excited about it either, because there's a lot of issues that a female will face when she joins the military. There's a lot of, for anybody who joins the military, there's going to be a lot of issues you face, but there are even more for women. But at the same time, it was very much like, this is the way. This is how you're going to get there. Yeah, it was very much of, if you want it, this is the way to get it.
So far, I've heard 2 things. Number one, it's kind of the family tradition. Many of the family members who are in the military. Second of all, going towards university financially, it's much more beneficial if you were to go that route because military pays for it.
Yeah. I mean, very much so. I come from a line of people who are in the military, right? My grandfather, my father, 4 of my father's brothers, a lot of his cousins that he has, not too many, but okay, of the cousins that he has, a lot of them were in the military, including females. One of my aunts was a nurse during Vietnam. My father also went to Vietnam, and some of his brothers. My cousins, 3 of my brothers. It seems like it's an opportunity to get out of where you are and see something else. And it has a lot of benefits. They'll teach you something. You can earn money to go to university. You can save a lot of money if you're there, because they pay for most of everything. You can use the GI Bill if you don't want to go to university to put a down payment on a house. Like, there's just like, it was viewed very much as this opportunity that we had, because it didn't seem like any of us were going to be smart enough to get a scholarship anywhere. So it was this road that was shown to us of how to break out of our cage, I guess you'd say, right? Like, like Ariel from The Little Mermaid. But, it was a way to, see the other side of everything, to meet people from other places in the country and other walks of life. Possibly, we're definitely going to go spend some time in another country, most likely. And, it was just a seeming as a way out, rather than, because there's this idea that my parents, especially my father, had, where if you don't follow some path to get out and see more, you're going to get boxed in and you're going to become a construction worker, a nurse, or you're going to be a corrections officer or like a policeman. That's all you're going to ever do. So if you want to do that, that's great. But if you want to try and get out and not do that, then this is one of the ways you can do it.
So Danni, do you think you're following like different kind of steps when you were making like choices? Like when you decided to come to China and then you decided to settle down here, like do you actually just following, certain kind of steps that you had before? Or are you just, just let it be?
It's more of a let it be thing, right? Like it's more of a, it's sort of like seeing a couple doors in front of you and deciding you're going to open that one, and that's the one you're going to go through, and then see where that door leads. When I was 18 and signed the paper to go join the military, I don't think I could have ever told you that I was going to end up living in China for 16 years, married with kids.
Exactly.
I mean, that would have never been something that I said, right? Like, I wouldn't have even told you that I was going to spend 8 years there. I mean, my idea was do my time, my 4 years, get out and go to school. And if I didn't get hurt, I probably would have stayed forever. I mean, I'm just okay with the lifestyle of it. Like it's you're either okay with it or you're not okay with it, right? I mean, there's a certain mindset of the person who signs that paper in the first place. Right? Like not everybody's going to go sign a piece of paper to go join a military of any kind in any country. But I probably would have stayed forever.
So how did you get hurt? So you were there for 8 years. So I'm assuming, when you leave the military, it's because of the injury. So how did you get hurt?
Well, my job was transport. Basically driving trucks to wherever. Basically, you go to wherever they are, carrying whatever they need to be brought to wherever they told you to go. So that could be bringing people, that could be bringing food, medical supplies, ammunition, like it could be whatever it is. And that is an extremely dangerous job, right? I think Linsey and I talked once about this with Michael. And that's an extremely dangerous job. You don't think of it as being, like you say, oh, you drive a truck around. Oh, how nice. But the thing is if you're in the United States or in a peaceful country, like if you're on a base in Germany, that can be a really nice, cush job. You're just pretty much going to pick up supplies of food and bringing it into the kitchens or whatever, like new T-shirts. But if they send you to Iraq, that's an incredibly dangerous job, because one of the most effective ways of defeating your enemy is to cut off their supply line.
Right.
If they can't get food and water, they can't fight. Right? If they can't get medical supplies, they can't fight. So it's very dangerous because the trucks are often attacked. And they're attacked to be demolished, or they're attacked to be stolen. So there is a constant issue with needing to be extremely on edge and aware of your surroundings. But anyway, there was one time we were carrying a load of things somewhere, and we were blocked in, and we had to get out of our vehicles to defend ourselves from incoming fire. And there was an explosion. I think it was an RPG. However, I'm not extremely I'm not extremely sure about what the explosion was. It could have simply been that they put explosives in the buildings around it so that they collapse on you and your supplies so that you can't go anywhere. But during one of the explosions, I was thrown into a wall, and then the building collapsed on top of me.
Oh my God.
So I received like very bad compression injury to my neck. And I did actually, technically, if you consider your heart to stop, to be dead, then I did die. But they fixed that, obviously, or I wouldn't be talking to you. But I had brain swelling and broken ribs and some bad injuries to my vertebrae and the cushions between your vertebrae, which I can't remember what are called right at this moment. So I had to spend some time in a hospital in Germany and have some operations where they put a bunch of 6 screws in my neck to hold it all together. And they took some discs out and replaced them with some stuff. And essentially they weren't sure for a minute if I was ever going to walk again. I have very bad nerve damage within my body because of my neck injury. So it's very normal for me to have very numb toes and feet. And on my left hand, I usually can't feel my 2 smallest fingers. Like, okay, not completely not feel, like not like somebody who's paralyzed, but you know, when that sensation of numbness that you have when they say your foot falls asleep, before the tingling, there's a numbness to it where you can, it has a loss of feeling in it. So I have that. And I have a lot of really bad back problems from it. So I couldn't continue. I had to leave.
Wow, that's an interesting experience, to be honest. I think I just never imagined to be so severe. Because, as we're talking to you obviously we never really mentioned about that part of the experience or the background, right? So you were thinking, oh, I had a little bit injury, so I have a little bit this kind of conditions. I never thought how serious it was. Like it was, as you said, like, theoretically or technically, you were dead for a moment, right?
Yeah. 4 minutes.
Wow.
It took them about, my heart stopped for 4 minutes before they could get it going again. No, it was a pretty bad injury, and then there was a very large building that collapsed on me. They had to dig me out. It took them an hour to dig me out. But I was still alive, so they kept digging. Thank you.
Wow, we were talking about innocence earlier, and you lived through those darkest time.
Well, yeah, wow. I mean, but I think that kind of experience also allowed me to love the little things even more.
To appreciate.
Right? Yeah. I mean, because when you're actually faced with waking up, right, and them telling you, okay, breathe deeply because we're going to take this tube out of your mouth that's helping you breathe now, right? And they take it out, and you try to talk and you can't really talk, and they're explaining your injury to you, and that we still have to wait for more of the brain swelling to go down and more of the swelling for your operation to go down. But it seems like you're going to be you're probably going to be able to walk, but it may not be able to be done unassisted. So when they say unassisted, they mean a cane or a walker. I don't know if you know what a walker is. Walkers are those things that old people use, and there's they hold it in front of them, and there's like the 4 feet on the bottom. So it's more support. So they weren't sure if I was going to be able to do it unassisted. But I was also very determined and worked really hard through physical therapy to do that, because I did have to kind of learn to walk again. I didn't completely forget to walk. I mean, there's a lot of people who are in much worse situations than I was, but I had very little balance. And after being in hospital bed for, so long, not walking, there's a certain amount of muscles that you start to lose in your legs and stuff. So, you sort of need to redo some things. And your nervous system has been disrupted. So it needs some time to rewire itself too. Because weirdly enough, like your nerves can rewire in different ways, and nerves can actually heal themselves, but they don't always. It's very random. They don't really completely understand all of it yet. So there's a chance that your nervous system will heal it and you'll have no numbness in your feet. And there's a chance that it's just going to continually get worse. They don't really know at that time. But yeah, I mean, I don't talk about it so much because, like, I don't know. I mean, there have been people and I, in our, Douyin chat room that have talked about, I do have problems with my back and everything like that. But I don't know how many of you know how serious it really is. I can't, I probably can't. There's no way that I could go visit the Great Wall.
All right.
Without bringing a chair. Because I can't walk that long without starting to have pain and needing to rest. And sitting isn't going to be the best thing, because what I really need to do is lie flat, lie down, to let all of the pressure off the different parts of my back. I mean, I've had 3 back operations so far. Because once you mess up one part of your back, it's very common for other parts to overcompensate for that area and them to end up having problems too. So, for example, like anybody who's possibly ever seen on TV or anything, for people who've been drinking and driving, there's that test that they give them where they have to walk and they have to put their head back and put their fingers to their nose. Yeah, I couldn't do that even if I hadn't had a drink, because of my lack of sensation and balance because of my nervous system.
Right.
And I have constant pain every day. Usually both of my on both of my hands, my little fingers up to my elbow kind of feel like they have no skin on them.
No.
I know I laugh when I say it, right? But I have to. If you've ever fallen and scratched your knee, right, and then you get in the shower or get water on it, and the way that stings. Or if you've had a sunburn and then you get the water, like water on the sunburn, or the sunburn feeling in general, like my hands usually feel like that all the time.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm so used to it that it doesn't bother me as much now as it would be for you if you had it happen to you today. You get used to pain. It's not enjoyable, right? And I'm glad that my level of pain is actually considerably low to some people in the world, right? Because I do live without pain meds most of the time. I do have pain, so there are some pain medications that I do take, but they're all NSAIDs. They're all for inflammation. Right? None of them are like narcotics. They're all just to make things not swollen as much as they are, and that relieves a lot of pressure and pain in different parts. But yeah, I mean, simple daily tasks like washing the dishes can be actually very difficult for me. Because of the way you have to stand, like the sink is too low, and you have to sort of bend over it, so you're hunching your back over, and that puts a lot of pressure in different areas of my back that is just terrible. I have to have certain chairs. Like I can't go to a Shao Kao and sit on one of those little foldy chairs because my knees end up to be way too high and it puts too much pressure everywhere, and my legs are going to be like completely numb within minutes. I have to see this as I can walk and I can still go to work. And I
Right,
can
right.
teach kids and hug them. And I can still walk downstairs to this and go to the little, take my dog for a little walk around the apartment complex and stop for an ice cream and do a little dance. It could be much worse. And I need to enjoy everything that I can while I can, because it is inevitable that I am going to be in a wheelchair at one point.
Mm.
That is not a question. That is a fact.
Mm.
It's a matter of if, it's a matter of how or when.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a matter of when, and we've been trying really hard to make that as far away as possible for years.
Mm. But Danny, have you thought about the life in the future? Like when you, when you were in the United States, you never expected that you're gonna spend so many years in China before, right? And now that you're living in China and you're having a very beautiful family here, so like, what do you think your life would be the next 5 years, the next 10 years?
Well, I mean, I hope not much changes other than seeing my son off to high school.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that happens.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very bad student, so there's part of me that's not quite too sure about it. But other than that, I don't want so much adventure and change anymore in my life. I've been through enough. I like the peacefulness of the mundane of the everyday, like I go to work for a few hours, maybe I stop at the market and pick something up for dinner, and then I come home, and cook something and have dinner with my family. Maybe we do something like go fishing with my husband or something. I like the boringness of it. And I really, to be honest, I hope not much of that changes over the next 5 years. I'd like it to stay exactly as boring as it is right now.
To a certain extent that with your description so far, physicality, anything that's physical activity that is, we don't realize that, we take it for granted that it's a challenge for you, right? The daily activities. And sometimes I think as we are going out, right, sometimes we form a judgment about a person that this person, is a little overweight, or this person, why is he or she is just, short of breath or something of that nature, that we take it for granted. We didn't realize how much story it's behind it, right? And
right.
then
You don't always, right? I mean, yes, I am extremely overweight at this point in my life. I've always been overweight, but not as badly as I am now. And it's true. I could stop eating ice cream and a lot of other things and eat 1000% healthy and everything else. But the one thing that I really actually can't do much of is exercise. Right. And I've had this conversation with tons of people who are like, yes, you can swim. Yeah, you're right. I can swim, but that still takes a toll as well on everything. Right. And they're like, well, there's those exercises for old people like Tai Chi. Yeah, you know what? I can't stand that long. I literally cannot stand up that long. Or like, okay, there's sitting exercises, like where you move your arms above your head. Like, do you realize how much effort it can be and pain it can cause me to actually lift my arms above my head? Just writing simple sentences, if I had to write 10 sentences on a blackboard, I need about 5 minutes where I don't have to put my hand up that high anymore. So that the pressure of my neck can start to, relax a little bit. Like, like the one of the places that I go to, buy vegetables to cook at home, to buy groceries. It has probably about 15 stairs that goes up to it. And they just built a ramp recently. And I was like, oh, it's so nice that they built a ramp. And I don't have a problem going upstairs. Not that many stairs anyway. I can walk up 3 flights of stairs before I start getting tired and winded, even though I am so fat. But it's walking down the stairs that is a problem. And you don't realize how much balance is required for you to walk downstairs, because you're picking 1 foot up and you have only 1 foot on the floor. And you have to balance yourself to put that other foot down
Mm.
in a much more difficult way than just simply walking, where you do pick one foot up and the other. And my fear of the stairs, like I walk downstairs like an 80-year-old lady because I can't fall on them. If I fall down the stairs, I'm probably not going to be able to work for a week.
Mm.
You know, so it's something as simple as walking down a flight of stairs that, you know, other people take absolutely for granted. And when people do look at me, the first thing they're going to think is, oh, it's because she's so fat. And that's not why I can't walk down those stairs.
Right.
It has nothing to do with my weight, you know?
Yeah, I think why I brought it up, it was because, you know, even like, I don't remember when I saw you or saw your picture. So I have an image of how you are, right? What you look like. And then I always remember that you are a little bit heavier, but that really kind of, how do I say that? I have to really reflect on myself at the moment. The first thing coming to my mind is that, why doesn't this person like lose weight? Or doesn't she know that it's unhealthy? So I think, without knowing the person, just from judging the book by its cover, there's just so much that we don't know the content of this book, right?
Right? No, you don't.
Yeah. Now, you know, after listening to you, I'm saying to myself, like, if I were in your shoes, I could probably be half of as courageous as you are. And probably in a much worse situation, and not sure if I will be so optimistic as I am today. You know,
It's
it really
true.
helps me. I think that's why I love listening to the people's stories and understanding what they're coming from, what's inside of them, because it constantly helped me to, I guess, to reflect on myself.
Mm.
You know,
And when I was listening to Danni, and I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, she's a survivor. She survived from like disasters, not only life disasters, but real disasters, right? And she's still trying to be positive, and she is a positive person, right? And compared to her, like, I'm almost like a snowflake. You know, I've been complaining about a lot of stuff. I even complain about the pain, the cramps that I have during the period, and compared to Danni, I am seriously like a snowflake. And I get the reason why Danni said that. That's like something I would like to quote every time when I want to encourage people. You know how lucky you are that you here, you're surviving here. Like, your ancestors just spent hundreds of years to survive in this world, right, Danni?
Right? Do you realize the list of survivors that you're from in order to be here today?
Yeah.
Like, your ancestors overcame great odds of everything.
Mm.
To that extent, that reminds me, we are all survivors. We are all actually winners in a way, not just survivors, because your dad's sperm, that sperm compete out of billions of others to get to that egg, right? And then that's where you are.
Right.
Like, it is an absolute miracle that you exist as you. Right. And I mean, I know there's a lot of bad things, you know, in people's lives that happen, a lot of, you know, trials and tribulations, and there's also a lot of joy and happiness, but it all makes you who you are. Right. It's all little pieces that add up to you. And, you know, but it's also up to you as well of how you want to, you know, what pieces you want to try and throw away and what pieces you want to cherish, you know. But, you know, Mark's absolutely right. We shouldn't necessarily jump so quickly to, you know, judge someone all the time, even though we do, right? It's in our human nature to be judgmental. And I often actually very disagree with people when they're saying you shouldn't be judgmental. I don't agree with that statement. You continue to be judgmental, but remember, you don't have to hold it against everybody, all the judgments that you make, right? Just because I don't agree with what you've done or who you are or something about anything doesn't mean that I have to hold it against you as being a negative, right? You can be judgmental and make a judgment and still say, okay, we make judgments every day throughout our lives, right? We judge about how fast a car is moving to cross the street. We make a judgment about what job we want and the friends we have and what, ice cream flavor we want to eat. We're constantly judging everything of whether we think it's beneficial or not beneficial to our lives. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what we do have to remember is you can't just hold it against everybody all the time for being who they are. If you want people to let you be who you are, you have to also let other people be who they are, right? I come from a Jewish family, right? So especially in these days, there's a lot of dislike towards my people.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there always has been my entire life, but it's a little bit worse these days. And
Well, I would say, like, regardless in terms of what we are, who we are, I feel like we always need to realize we were born precious, already a miracle. You don't have to do anything. Although I'm not religious, right? Regardless Judaism or Christianity, I feel like there's always certain sense of advocacy about that you are worth it. You're worth it the way you are. You by being born, you are good enough. Right.
Absolutely.
So I think there is no problem to be pursuing something better than who we are yesterday, but just by who you are today, you are good enough. I think a lot of times we have to remember this way. It's like, when we're talking about, gaining favors to attract men or doing certain things to attract wealth or gain more power, I think sometimes it's we don't like ourselves. Maybe it's turned about we don't like where we are. We don't like who we are now. So if we can make that kind of fundamental shift about, hey, who we are today is not just good. I'm already a winner. Then I think everything else is using a Chinese phrase, 锦上添花，就你本来就是非常非常好的。任何的其他的一个事情都是一个加号。I feel like it's everything else is an addition rather than saying, well, I'm losing something. Right?
Then to wrap up the conversation, I'm gonna ask Danny a crazy question. The old ones that we used to have, Mark. Do you still remember? If you were to have a superpower, what would it be and why, Danny?
I love that question.
Ooh, what superpower would I want? Not really sure.
Immortal?
Well, the other question would be, do you want any superpower?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. That's just it right there, right? With great power comes great responsibility, right? I'm not sure if I want to be held responsible for any of the superpowers.
Well. I mean, then let's make it lighter, right? If you don't have to be responsible for anything, just so yeah.
I really dig invisibility.
Ooh. Why?
I think being invisible is an interesting one.
Like, why?
So what would you do with it, right? Now you have this super ability.
Well,
what kind of fun would you do?
Well, I mean, of course, the idea of breaking into places and stealing shit, that's really interesting. One, right?
I totally agree.
Because you're invisible, right? So I would definitely be a thief. I have to admit that. If I could be invisible and never get caught, I absolutely would be a thief.
Guys, that's Danny. She's being very honest.
But you know what? Just the ability to turn off everybody around me, like no one sees me anymore, and just be able to just walk down the street would be awesome. Like for some reason, it seems like there's this. It offers you a freedom from everybody's eyes. Right. And I don't mean like to do bad things, but I mean also just to be, right? Like nobody's gonna look at you for being fat or being ugly or being short or being tall or being beautiful or whatever, right? You're invisible to others. I also think eavesdropping on people's conversations would be interesting.
You won't be the observer, Danny.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will be the observer of everything and everybody. And then it's gonna be fun, I do think. Yeah.
And
I
also
love
think,
how Danni associated two words, right? Invisibility associated with freedom. It's you're boundless. I think that's in general the super abilities are in a way, right? It's freedom from something. Let's say you like being able to fly. It's a freedom from gravity, right? So you're not bounded by something. There's some restriction that's placed on you, either by the society or by this environment that you want to break free from.
yeah.
Interesting.
I think
It's
teleportation
very
would be
interesting.
pretty good too, to just be able to, close my
You
eyes
only
and then
get to
open
choose
them.
one today, Danni.
Well, all right. Well, I'm just saying that would be a cool one too.
Yeah, so everybody, that's Danni, our special guest tonight. And thank you very much for joining us, Danni.
And stay
No problem.
tuned, and we're gonna have more Danni coming up soon.
Exactly. See you next time. Bye bye.
See you soon.